Now, before we get into what the channel's about, I wanted to introduce myself and give you some background on me, and that's going to give you everything you need to know about why I'm doing this, exactly what this channel is about, and what it means in the future. And let me quickly jump into my background. I'm a creative director. I deal with digital media all day long. That's what I do. I've been doing it for years, and I love my job. But I didn't start there. I grew up in the country. I grew up in the mountains out where there was lifted trucks, cowboy hats, and lots of room to explore. Way far away from anything urban. I loved it. I loved growing up in the trees, and when we get the chance to sleeping out under the stars, I often looked up and just like tried to comprehend the vast space that I was seeing, all those billions and trillions of stars that I could kind of perceive as I laid on my back in my sleeping bag. And occasionally, looking up there, I would see that, that occasional solid light that wasn't an airplane that was slowly drifting across the night sky. And I often thought to myself, geez, that's like, is that really a satellite? And you can almost say that this is where this interest into this topic first grabbed a hold of me. And like I said, I would look up at these solid lights that would just float across the sky, and I just think to myself, really, is that really a satellite? It's what my parents told me. Really, that's the only information I ever had on what those objects were. But it's just something you would occasionally notice, and I just pass it off and keep going. And I did that all through my childhood, going outside, camping, sleeping, hiking, enjoying the outdoors. That was something that was a constant. And I never had any experiences. It was something that was way far away from my mind. At the time I thought, ooh, these people, that like claim that they've been abducted. I thought it was kind of kooky. And so, just kind of lived in this fairy tale land that's what people experienced. And for me, all this happened in Utah. I grew up in Utah, love Utah, my home state. I live in Seattle now, but for a moment there, I moved down to Southern California. And it wasn't until I had moved to Southern California that I actually had my first experience witnessing UAPs or UFOs in the sky. And so let me take you through this experience that I had. It was late at night. It was 2010, in the middle of the summer in Barstow, California. And me and a couple of my buddies were headed back to our apartment. And as we're driving on the freeway, I'm in passenger seat, and my buddy's driving. There's two buddies in the back, and I'm looking out across him out into the desert, where there's nothing, except for Fort Irwin military base. That's about an hour's drive away from where we were. I'm looking out there, and I just see this light, and the first thing that I noticed, it's a single light. It's not blinking, and it's moving around really, really abnormally. And I couldn't, I'm trying to comprehend. So I grew up on dirt bikes, four-wheelers. We would, me and my buddy, when we were younger, we would go out and just race cars. Anything that had a motor in it, we would try and race it across the desert, day or night. So I kind of had an idea of, at distance, what a four-wheeler or dirt bike would look like, with the headlight on, and that's all you could see driving off in the distance. And that was not what I was seeing. And to back that up, I also knew the skyline, and this light was above the edge of the skyline, so I knew that it wasn't on the ground. So I'm looking at it, I'm thinking to myself, okay, there's no blinking lights, this thing's moving pretty erratically, so I'm like, this has got to be like a close helicopter, something that can travel great distances. But I'm like, at the same time, I'm thinking a helicopter wouldn't fly like this. You wouldn't do that. And then where it started to get really strange is that another light appeared, and they started chasing each other, and then they would turn off, and then they would turn back on, and before you knew it, there was three lights, and they started turning colors. They all started as the same color as a normal car headlight. That's why I thought it was a four-wheeler initially, or something way off in the desert. But then I started seeing green and blue and purple and red, and they just kept chasing each other, turning off and zipping back and forth and pausing, and just totally unreasonable movements for any aircraft that I know exists. And more of these lights started coming. They eventually, I think, got up to 7 or 8 different lights that were just chasing each other around, it looked like, in the sky, and just kind of hovering there. And I was totally convinced right off the bat that this was something that was a UFO, or what we would now call a UAP, an unidentified aerial phenomenon. And everyone in the car had the same experience. It wasn't just me. We all saw this, and I concluded, like I said, immediately that this has got to be UFOs. Nothing that I know of could move like that. And the two guys in the back were more skeptical, but the guy that was driving, he was on board with me, and it was just this really, really strange experience. And we got off the exit, they fell out of view, and that was the last I saw of it. And I lived there for quite a while longer, but I never saw anything like that again. And it deeply impressed me that there was something so unexplainable that I had witnessed that just defied a lot of other variations for reasoning. Now, this is 2010. This is before personal drones really started to take off. So I knew it wasn't that. I knew it was above the skyline. So they were aerial vehicles. They weren't blinking with their what a normal plane or helicopter would have to have on to do aerial flight. And I had this experience, and it really just hit me pretty deep that there was something that I saw that I couldn't explain. And I took that away with a little bit of skepticism initially. I couldn't explain it, and I didn't want to sound like a whack job. So I just tucked that story away for a long time. And it wasn't actually till years later that I had 2 less pronounced experiences, but equally as confusing, that it set into my mind that there is something going on in the skies that is just unexplainable. And these other people who come in the thousands saying that they've had similar experiences, and so much of this stuff has been caught on film that it's next to undisputable. And the Pentagon actually has recently released some aerial footage from one of our airplanes, fighter jets, I'm not really sure what plane it came from, of UFO flying through our airspace that they filmed from the aircraft. And they didn't know what it was. They, in the footage, you can hear them say, look at, there's a whole fleet of them.
There's a whole fleet of them, look on the ASA.
We don't know what these things are. And this has all taken me to this place where I really want to know what other people are experiencing. And that's the purpose for this channel. Now, I have, like I said before, I have more than one experience. I had one while I was in Mexico. I was staring up at the night sky, saw something unexplainable, but that's for another video. And another one that I actually, in my last job, I was on a camping trip, filming some dirt bikes, and we got a time lapse of something unexplainable floating through the sky. And we actually caught 2 objects that start in at one trajectory and turn and fade and go into another one. It's super wild, really kind of crazy to explain, but those are for different videos. Now, what I want this channel to be is a place where people can relay their stories secondhand. I want to help educate people about what's going on, what's out there. But really, for people who don't feel comfortable speaking up themselves, I want to be able to share their stories on a platform and bring really a lot more awareness to stuff that surprisingly happens often. And people aren't really sure how to process it or deal with it. So when you're considering on whether or not you're going to subscribe to this channel, I want to just say this. Subscribe not because you're into UFOs or you're looking for more YouTube videos you want to watch. Subscribe because it makes a difference to the people who are too afraid of what the experience is going to be to share what they saw with the people around them. I want to make this a normal topic that we talk about. I want it to be something that's surrounded in positivity and that we can grow together as a community. So subscribe not because you just want more, whatever supernatural content from YouTube, but just subscribe to support the people so they can feel comfortable in telling their stories. With that being said, I hope you guys are having a good day and stay classy. Catch you later.